Hello, this is Oliver Blair from Untitled Chapter, and I'm going to go through how to quickly do some Photoshop visualizations using, I think we'll just use SketchUp and Photoshop, and I'll just use SketchUp very basically. But okay, if we switch to this other scene, and then you should be able to see my whole desktop now. So the idea with this is that if I move that above, there we go. Now you can see my face too. Not that it's important. So what you can do is use some reference work if you really love a kind of a different artist style. Something like this here. This work I think is amazing, right? It sort of combines ultra kind of minimalist style with digital techniques with illustrative kind of techniques. And it's also got a lot of texture and atmosphere and mood kind of all being communicated as well in this kind of really elegant, refined kind of way. So what I'm gonna try and do is kind of use this style and kind of emulate what I'm going for. So that's what I'll have this here in Photoshop kind of as a reference layer. If we go back to this one and I kind of pull up the camera, you can sort of see I've got some little test sketches. Oh, other hand. There we go. Test sketches that I've made. We've got a plan, we've got a section, and we've got a little bit of a perspective, something going on. But the idea here is just as a kind of a concept idea to kind of try and get some ideas happening for our design. So I've got my design idea, which you should have as well, and I got my reference kind of style that I want to kind of try and emulate, or not just rip off, but employ, take inspiration from, and I'm going to try and recreate that. So what I'm going to do first is just quickly in SketchUp try and model that up, just very quickly. And this, I think we might do a time lapse of this. Okay, cool. So I've quickly modeled that up, and I think the idea is I want to kind of sort of think about how I want to try and get it as close to kind of this style in SketchUp first, before I start messing with it in Photoshop. And so you see here, we've got some lines going on, sure. We've got some faces that are sort of solidly filled with black, but you sort of see on the end points or on the corners of those of this drawing here, there's no kind of dots or indentation or anything weird like that happening, but in SketchUp we've got these kind of ugly bits happening. What you can do is go over to the styles panel, and if you're on a Mac, that'll be, you have to actually go window and then it'll be under there like styles, but if you're on a PC it's in this kind of default tray over here. And what we can do is we can click on the edit tab, and then this first little square here is actually a button. So there's like a few kind of different tabs within the style pane. You can sort of see here there's some checkboxes we can like untick things. So like there's no lines at all. There's some edges there, and we can turn off these extensions and endpoints as well. Cool, that's looking a wee bit better. And then I think it's the second one here. Yeah, here we go. We'll just change this default front color. We want it to be black, right? So we'll just change it to black. Boom! There we go. Now we're talking. And then I think, just to make it a little bit easier on ourselves, we'll change the background as well. So that's that third kind of cube tab there in the styles pane. I'll just change the background to black. And then I'll turn the sky off as well, because I think the sky kind of messes it up. Boom! Now we're talking. Okay, here we go. This is getting pretty good. I'll get rid of this red, blue, green. These lines here, this is called the axis point. Sorry, the axis lines, and they're defining an origin point in the model there, which can be helpful for some things, but we don't want that right now. So I'll get rid of the guides and the, where is it, model axis. Boom, there we go. Now we're talking, getting a bit more minimal. But see when I zoom in, these lines are quite sort of thin. If I'm kind of going to do a plan, I might want those lines to be a wee bit thicker, but we'll have a look. Might be alright, might not be, I don't know. And this color here, should I just change that? Yeah, I might just change that for now. Just leave that. I'll just leave everything as a blank kind of texture. I think the first thing I'm going to do is set up some scenes. So I'll go up to camera, standard views, and I'll just go top. I want a kind of a decent plan view. And I'll use my pan tool, which is H. Kind of position that kind of nicely within the frame there. I sort of want a bit of negative space, but not that much. Maybe something like that. And then right now, you can sort of see it's in perspective. If I go up to camera, right now it's in perspective. We might want to change that. I might just want some orthos as well. So let's go like that, and I'll go, it's under view. On a PC, it's under view, animation, and you go add scene. I think it's the same on a Mac as well, yeah. And we go like that. And I'll save this as a new style. There we go, nice. Let's just quickly save this. Alright, cool. So we've saved it. And we've got a scene happening here. We can rename this if we want. You can go scenes here, and then you can sort of change the name of it in here. You can rename. Let's rename this plan. Cool. And then it might want to kind of a section as well. So I'll just get a section happening. Oop. There we go, and I'll just align the view with that section plane. So when you've got your section plane in there working, you can right click on it and go align view. Cool. And I don't want to actually see this big ugly section plane. So again, up in the styles panel here, you can just turn off section planes, but you'll still be able to see the cut. But it's black, so we can actually change the color of the section cut up here as well. So you see the section cut, and right now it's black, so let's change it to white. Boom, there we go. That's looking pretty good. Maybe I'll zoom in a wee bit for this one. Yeah, something like that might be kind of good. Let's go. I'll add a new scene up here. Add. Update selected style. And again, come down here to rename it to section. And we might want an elevation of it as well. So I'll go back to the plan view just to turn off that section and change the perspective again. I kind of want a nice perspective, something like this. What you can also do to get a good kind of height to start off with, if you're not really too good at eyeballing it, you can go actually up to camera, and then there's a little position camera option, and you can just slap that down somewhere. And then what it'll put you in after you've hit the ground is the look around kind of tool. So you can just click and drag to sort of change the orientation of where the camera's looking. That's a bit too steep for me though, because I didn't scale this model properly. So we'll just kind of want it something like that. Kind of. Add, and then perspective 1. And I might want another one actually that's more kind of in. Do I want it to be looking from the other side? Yeah, maybe. You can kind of see that angle. That kind of curve at the end. Yeah. And it takes some noodling around. Like right now I'm middle clicking to get the orbit tool. And then I'm always in the pan tool. So I can just kind of easily adjust things around. I want it to be quite sort of regular. There we go. Because it's kind of a funky shape, so having a regular angle's a good idea. Sweet. Okay, so now we've got these 4 different kind of views. And what I would do is actually export this as a 2D graphic. So file, export, 2D graphic. And what that's going to let us do is, where's all my stuff? Here we go. We'll chuck it in here. Let's do it as a, because the type of file that I'm going to create is just for displaying on screen. Because you're going to be sort of submitting it to Moodle and stuff. I'm just going to do it as a PNG. That should be all good. And when I'm exporting it, see, I haven't clicked export yet because I want to change some of the options. And right now it's saying use view size, but I can actually change this so I can actually make it a lot bigger. And what I'm going to do is make quite big files. So this will be let's try something like that, so that it's going to be like a 4K kind of image. I think that's a kind of a good idea for you guys to be working at this stage, because they kind of print out quite decent, but then also on large monitors they look really good as well. And we'll go, yeah, we'll just leave it like that. Cool. And what I'm going to do is blah 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 plan. Cool, and then I'm going to go actually take a look at that quickly and have a look. Oh, that's that one. Here we go. Yeah, so it's always kind of important to have a look at your exports after you've just created them, because they might come out sort of a bit different to how they're displayed on the screen. So right now for me, it's quite a thin line. I kind of want to beef that up a wee bit. I can do it in Photoshop, but I can just do it in here in SketchUp as well and get kind of a better result in the end. So what I want to do, again, is go into that Styles panel under the lines, and what we can do is actually turn like profiles on, and this is a setting that you can actually adjust as well, so you get a bit of more thickness to it. But also what you could do is export it at a lower resolution, but then it'll be kind of a bit pixelated as well. So what I'll do is that, just to kind of beef up those profiles a wee bit. It should have all the same settings, yeah. Cool, let's have a look at that. Yeah, that's a wee bit kind of chunkier, and it has a bit of variation now in the line weight, so I kind of want that. Cool, so let's just do that for all the rest of them. And so what I'm going to do for this one is actually turn on the back edges as well, and see we get a bit of sort of dashed line effect happening as well for the part of the geometry that's not visible. Okay, cool. So now in Photoshop, I'm going to import all those screenshots, those exports that I took from SketchUp. Cool. And what I'm going to do, sort of see how I've got this large frame here. I might actually just invert that. This large kind of frame that we're working at, and there's a lot of kind of white space or negative space around it. That's a really good kind of thing to keep in mind. Like, you want to sort of see how your compositions, how your work is going to be held within that frame. And oh yeah, I can just pull up this one here. And this is a really good kind of example of that. So like, how does that negative space read as part of your drawing as well? And here it's quite beautiful on its own. So it's like, think about that positive and negative space. How can we treat both of them in a designerly way? Okay, which one should I work on first? Maybe let's just do an easy one. Let's do a section to begin with. That'll be easier, I reckon. And in my sketch, I don't know if you can sort of see. Oh yeah, I can go back to this here. In my sketch, I've got some other elements happening there as well. Like there's some kind of fill texture happening, and there's some elements, some vertical elements happening, and then a background element. So I'm just going to add them in Photoshop. And what you can do, how you can do that, is just using the line tool. How should I set this up? There we go. I might sort of have it kind of down there like that a wee bit. And then I'm going to create a new layer, I think. And this will be like section, like vertical something. Normally I'm not this good at sort of layering, naming layers and things, but I'll try and be good. And sometimes what I like to use is actually just the Polygonal Lasso tool, which is this guy here. And so you can sort of select on random, on just like straight lines. And what I'll do though is hold down Shift and it'll snap to 45-degree angles. And so if I go up, I maybe want it to be like one like there. And then because I'm still holding down Shift, it's just going to do a 45 from there as well, so I can go straight out. Just want like a wee thin kind of guy. And then what I'm going to do is actually come down a wee bit, just to show where this would sort of rest in the footing. And this is just, you know, it's a kind of sketch, right? It's just a quick kind of idea. And then you can use actually the brush. If I'm on the right color, and I'll just brush in there. And you can sort of see if I zoom in a wee bit closer, how my brush is set up is quite sharp now, so I might change the hardness. And I can expand the brush size using the square brackets on the keyboard. And so see if I come down to about there, it's kind of, oh, that wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be. See, it kind of fades out towards the edge. Quite kind of blurry. So maybe that's something that you want to kind of think about employing as well. Like how can this kind of blur and look like it's kind of receding into the ground? That's sort of like one approach. Another approach might be to actually just have a hard kind of edge there. A really hard edge. Just keep it quite hard. And then actually just change the brush opacity. Like the whole thing, just drop that down. Maybe I'll try 15%. Yeah, so even something like that could be quite cool. Yeah, I might kind of do that. That's kind of cool. And maybe a wee bit heavier actually, so I'll just add a wee bit more in. Oh, yeah. Okay, sure, whatever. And that's probably too deep as well, so I'll just use the eraser, kind of erase that out. Now we're talking. It's got a wee bit of a fade as well as a sort of hard line there. So you see that, like how it's sort of there's a bit of development in that, just that one line. Like I'm not just drawing one line, it's sort of broken into now 3 different kind of parts. There's the main kind of mask that's all solid. There's the bit that's subterranean, which is sort of more grey, and then it's kind of fading out as well. So it's kind of like a developed line. Okay, Ollie, sure. And then what we'll do is I'll just select all of that, and I'm just going to hold down, what is it? On a PC it's Control Alt, and I can just duplicate that whole thing. And then if I release that, while I'm still dragging it and hold down Shift, it'll keep it, again, just on that one axis. So I can't like move it up or down. Maybe I want one like there, and Control Shift again. Control Alt, and then maybe one kind of a wee bit further away, maybe there-ish. So you sort of see, even now I'm still kind of designing this. Maybe this one's a bit shorter. Let's go like that. They don't really work as that kind of soft edge though, do they? So I might undo that. Oh, cancel that, undo that. And just actually do a hard kind of cut. So I'm just sort of selecting with the marquee tool and pressing delete. Yeah, there's something happening there. I think that should be alright for this kind of concept. And then I want the same thing on the other side, so I'll select all of it, Control, Alt, drag over. I can hold down Shift so it doesn't move it up or down. There we go. How does that look? Kind of it's too mirrored, eh? It's too similar. So we'll adjust this one. What about that? Yeah. This kind of needs to come up a wee bit, I think. Oh. I could just transform this, I guess. Nope. How do we do this again? Shift. There we go. Shift. But I'm sure you guys know how to do all those shortcuts and things. That's why I'm kind of briefly going over them. I mean, I hope you do. It looks a little bit like a rugby post now. I kind of don't want that. Maybe one needs to be quite a bit taller. Let's try this. Oh, yeah, there we go. Something happening there. Let me just try that. I'll just leave that there for now. Okay, cool. So we've got these sort of elements happening. These vertical things. And then I want to kind of beef up this section line here where it's kind of cutting through the ground. I want to kind of beef that up a wee bit. So I'll just go over that again. Might make a new layer. Ground line. And again, just kind of beef it up. I might use the brush tool for this. So change the opacity up. There we go. And then I'll make it a thinner line. I don't want it super thick. Yeah, something like that, maybe, or a bit thinner. See, I'm just kind of testing it out and then deleting it. Test it out and then delete it. Yeah, it's too thin. A bit bigger. Yeah, there we go. And then what you can do, one trick, is if I click somewhere and then hold down Shift and then click somewhere else, it does a straight line to that. I'm just holding down Shift and I can just do straight lines, which is exactly what we kind of want. So I want to start kind of over here-ish and then kind of come to here. And this will just kind of help beef up some of these lines. Oh, I do want a straight line though, don't I? Another trick is that you can actually click and then hold down Shift and it will only let you draw in the axis that you're going. So you can't draw off angle, so you can just only draw horizontally or vertically. See, right now I can't go down. Cool. So just click and then hold down Shift, and then click and then hold down Shift. There we go. So there's something kind of happening here. If I come all the way over and hold down Shift and then just click. Yeah, there we go. Drew that line all the way to there. Same thing. And then I think it's a good idea to do it kind of by hand like this, rather than to kind of get the computer to do too much of it, because it is. See how I'm sort of spilling off the edge and sort of there's some messiness to it. That kind of gives a real life and a character to your drawings. Which otherwise, you know, what you're drawing is kind of this emotionless thing that's void of all life, you know, and that can kind of come into the reading of your architecture as well. Like, do you really want it to be that sort of feeling? Do you want it to be kind of emotionless? Cool. Something happening here. And what I also want to do is add a kind of like a ground fill to sort of give it a bit more weight to it. And how I'm going to do that is, yep, a new layer, and we'll go ground fill, GR pound short, and then again my favorite tool, the Polygonal Lasso. So I'll come out here and I will I'll select all this. Let's go all the way over, short. And then what I'm going to do is kind of, yeah, I'll just follow it, it'll be fine. I'll just sort of do it roughly again. It won't take too long. Just sort of trace over. There is ways you can sort of select this, but this will be great. I think this will work quite well. And what I'm going to do is actually just fill that all with a solid color. There's the paint bucket, but one trick you can do is hold down Control and then press Delete. And what it'll do is it'll paint in the background color. Undo that, and if you hold down Alt and then press Delete, it'll fill it with the front color that you have in Photoshop here. Super handy. And I want to kind of, I don't want it to be such a savage kind of white color, so I'm going to just open up the saturation, just bring that down a wee bit, just so we can still see it. And then I'm going to put it underneath that ground line. And what I'm going to actually do is, I don't want it to just be this box, I want it to kind of fade out. So I'm going to put a clipping mask on it. Hopefully you guys know what a clipping mask is. And then I'm going to just use the eraser. And hopefully it's a kind of a soft brush. Yeah, here we go. With a large kind of brush, yeah. And I'll just go through and I'll kind of use the eraser to kind of chop out some parts of that. So right now it's like sort of taking a lot out. So what I might do is drop the opacity of it down a wee bit. Just so I can kind of really feather it, sort of just really be quite gentle with it, and just sort of build up. See, I'm clicking and then sort of letting go and like adding more bits in. And I just want a little bit, you know, I don't want it to be quite rough, kind of quite rough, sort of like how it's happening within this context here, just to be quite rough like that. Because it's not going to be grey like this, I'm going to actually use a pattern, and this is just going to be kind of the guide of where that pattern will be. So let's have a look. You can actually add in a pattern layer. Let's have a look at some patterns. Whoa, that's a cool one. Let's have a look at some other ones. It's kind of a good one. Is there like more a random one? Let's try and work with this. Okay, I mean it looks hideous right now. Let's try and work with it. So I'll apply that. Excuse me. So right now you can sort of see. Excuse me. So what you can see here is I've got a pattern fill layer happening. And what I'm going to do actually is just, I'm going to rasterize it. So I don't want it to be a pattern layer anymore. I'm just going to go rasterize layer. And it's got a clipping mask on it. I can get rid of that as well. I can just delete that. So now it's just a raster layer. This is just pixels. And what I might do is actually mess around a little bit with the contrast of it. So image adjustments, and I'm going to mess around with the brightness and contrast. I think I'll slap on legacy. There we go. And we got a bit of pattern sort of happening here. Maybe a bit something like this. Maybe something like that might kind of work. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, now we're talking. Okay, yeah, this will work. Okay, cool. There we go. And then what I'll do, so that's across the whole artboard canvas right now. But what I can do is actually use that clipping mask I've got for the ground layer, the ground fill, as a clipping mask for this. So if I hold down Control and then click on that clipping mask layer here, it'll select that layer, the contents of that layer, and then I can go, because I've got the pattern fill layer selected, I can just apply a new clipping mask with the selection enabled, and it'll do the negative of that. So I can just inverse that by going Control I. There we go. We've got something kind of, it's a bit chunky. We've got something happening here. This is kind of what I wanted, like a kind of a texture, you know, a fill to kind of be happening. It's a wee bit kind of chunky in terms of the scale of it though. So I wonder if I can bring that down a wee bit. Just undo, and then I'll just scale it down a wee bit. Yeah, let's just scale it down, something like that maybe. And yeah, I think that might be a bit better. And so the same thing, Control, click on the clipping mask, and I'll apply that, and then I'll just invert that. So Control I. Oh yeah, that's what we want. Cool. Oh wait, is it? Yeah, we want this just to be out of it as well. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think that's a bit better. I can probably make it a bit more grungier. But another technique that might be helpful is to, if you want to replicate that texture across the whole thing, using the clone stamp tool. It's a great tool. So you can press S for the clone stamp, or that's this little option over here. And if you press Alt or that's Command on a Mac, this is where you get your little reticle, your little target kind of icon for the mouse, and you can click on a piece of texture that you want, like over here, and then now it's going to be a brush. Oh, if I have it on the right layer, now it's going to be a brush of that texture. So if I click over here and paint, see it's going to like paint that texture that it's referencing. And you can sort of see that with the little cross here where it's kind of referencing as well. So it's a great way to kind of add more texture in from texture that you've already got showing up there. Yeah, it's a great tool. I wish someone told me about this earlier. It's really, really handy. So I'll just sort of apply that all over there. And you can sort of see how I keep going back to like hold down Alt, reference another part, and bring that up. Nice. I think I want these verticals over top as well. Yeah. Cool. So there's something kind of happening there. It's a little bit kind of atmospheric, kind of moody. And you know, like I said before, you can go back to the clipping mask, and you can use the erase tool and maybe chop out a bit more if you want. If it's too sort of dominant in some areas, sort of tone it back a wee bit. Yeah, like sort of pare it back a wee bit. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then you can even tone the whole layer down as well. You know, just so it's just sort of subtly there. Cool. What else are we missing from this? So we want some kind of dashed lines and things happening as well, and some of that texture from the trees and things. I really like this texture. So what I might do, you can even use that and sort of reference that texture. So if I hide that, yeah. So what I might do with that layer selected, kind of just copy a chunk of it. I might just copy a wee chunk like that and go layer via copy. There we go. And now I can bring this up to the very top. Hide that background layer. And now we've got a kind of a bit of a layer to play around with. And I might add this in kind of as a kind of a subtle tree kind of forms here. I think that would be quite cool. So I'll quickly mask that out of here, and I'll see what happens. Cool, so as you can sort of see here, I've selected the clipping mask for that tree, and I'm just going to use the marquee tool to kind of move that selection. And I'm going to use it basically as a kind of a cookie cutter, because it's a bit too flat here, I reckon. bit too flat, so I'll just use that to kind of delete out some chunks. That's looking pretty good. And then even using the erase tool, if it's on like a lower kind of opacity, to kind of give it a bit more depth, a bit more shape to it as well. Yeah, that seems to be working quite well. Cool, so got some trees kind of happening. They look pretty decent. And then I think now the idea would be maybe add a streetscape kind of in here as well. And let's try and use a reference kind of photograph. Try and find one of those. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I've sort of found this little dinky elevation, and what I'm going to do is in Chrome, what you can do, you can right click and you can just go copy image, and then go back to Photoshop and just go Control V, just paste, and it will paste it in. I might invert that so see what it looks like, and I'm not going to use the whole thing just like that because that would, I haven't really added any value to that. So what I'm going to do, maybe I'll just scale it up a wee bit as well over here. I'm just going to use kind of parts of it and kind of, Photoshop it up a wee bit. So I kind of want it maybe to set something like that, but really I need to drop it back quite a bit. Maybe it's even on like 10%, just to sort of show that there is a street kind of there. But it's not going to be exactly like this, and I might even use a filter. Let's try that. Let's try like a motion blur or something, just to kind of really break it up. No, that's crazy. We don't want to do that. Oh god, that's hideous. No, let's not do that. It might be just blur in general, like not motion blur, just a box blur. Yeah, this something like that could kind of work. Like we just want to get an idea that there's some stuff behind. Doesn't really work with the style we're going here. Kind of want a bit of something. No, maybe it's not a blur, but it's more like a sort of choppiness of the actual image. And I think even 14% is a bit too much. Maybe it's like 7. Yeah, there we go. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get some chunks. I'm going to Control Alt and just sort of copy those chunks around. And this should help kind of break it up a wee bit and have it not so kind of regular. And it might be even about kind of stretching some bits out. What was it? Shift. Oh, Command T, Shift. No, that's a bit too whack. Keep doing that. There we go. Yeah, because this hairstyle, we don't really want that kind of there, but we kind of want to show that there's kind of a straight front there, and we could even maybe delete some of this kind of detail a wee bit. There's just some kind of larger kind of chunks there. You know what I mean? And then, even using the what was it, the clone stamp, kind of referencing that stuff. Having that kind of over there and then over there. Yeah. So you can sort of really sort of treat it and really Photoshop it, kind of break it up, change it from what it was to something kind of a bit different and new. I mean, I'm just going to leave it like that for now, but you get the idea that there's a street behind it, and it's in like an urban setting. And now I mean this is almost done. I mean my design is quite simple, but I think I'm going to add some people just to kind of show what the effect, what the program is in this space. I've got some other weird bits happening here too. This is for the ground pattern fill. There we go. Yeah, I want to kind of show evidence of program, so I'm going to do that through people. A really great website to get Photoshop people for architectural stuff is called Scalgabar. It's like a I think Swedish. Yeah, EC is Swedish site, but it's a kind of a library, a graphic library of a whole bunch of people cut out. So we can have some snowboarders down there or whatever, some ice skiers. Ice ski? Some cyclists, yeah. I think, I mean, I'm a hipster, so I want some cyclists down there. Let's get a cyclist guy. He's a weird looking guy. And then, so again, if I right click and go copy here, what it's going to do, it's going to have a black background, which is not ideal. But here, if we go right click and save image as, see, it is a PNG, so it is actually cut out. And if I drag that image into Photoshop, then it will be transparent. So just keep that in mind as well. Like that sort of copying trick works for some things and it doesn't for others. And for this, I'm going to have another folder, probably up here. Call these people, chuck them into there. And then what I might do, because what you can do is you can alter that image, like go like that, sort of change the image. But see, it sort of puts a smart filter on that smart layer. You don't really want to do that for each individual one. So what I can just do is have that on that whole folder. But if I find another person, oh, okay. Can we just have some people walking? Here we go. It's a very Dunedin looking shot. Save image. Here we go. And then I'll drag those people in. Cool. So right now I've got two different layers. It's two different kind of silhouettes of people. And what I'm going to do is actually apply an adjustment layer to that folder that they're in. So if I click on the folder and then go up to my adjustments, and then I think I want to change the saturation. And what I can do is just drop the saturation down and see how it just instantly changes it for all of them. And I think I want to bump up the contrast a wee bit too. Let's try this. See how that's doing that for the whole image though? So what I want to do is bring the adjustment layer above the folder, and there's a little button here on the adjustment properties, and if I click that, it means it's just going to affect the layer underneath it, which is that folder. So anything within the folder is going to get affected like that. So I can keep changing the brightness and it won't change the rest of the drawing, because I want to kind of have them sit within the drawing. I don't want them to be really dominant like they would be if they were in color. They're like super dominant there. I kind of want the space to be the dominant piece of the drawing. And of course they're really giant as well, so I'm going to have to resize them. I don't know where this guy is off to. He's doing a wheelie or something. Maybe he's coming out of my design. Or he's like in it, walking up. Yeah, let's put him down here somewhere. Another trick, you can use the arrow keys to kind of nudge things around one pixel at a time. And that's too big still, so I think I was thinking of something like that. Like it's quite big. Same thing for these guys. So just kind of bring them down. Maybe they're like, they're sort of walking on that path above, behind. Don't know if that's the right size or not. But the cool thing is when you drag things into Photoshop, it should make them a smart object. So you can resize and expand, and it won't lose any information in that drawing. They're too small. Come on. See, like if I make them too small, I can just bring them up, and they're not kind of pixelated. Cool. Cool. And then, so the kind of the style that I think you need to think about with particularly for a section image like this is, you know, the things that are closer to that camera will be really dominant and clear, and then the further you go back, it sort of recedes into the background. That's why I've got the street elevation here quite subdued and quite dark. Was that this? Yeah. I think I want to chop out some parts of it. Yeah, I don't want it to be so kind of high. Yeah, there we go. So what that means is this guy here, if he's kind of closer to us, he should be a bit kind of lighter than these guys. And I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but one way is you can just sort of drop the opacity of these people a wee bit. And I mean, that should work kind of okay because the background's not super clear. Cool. So yeah, the problem with this site though, they're all just white people mostly. They're all just Swedish people, right? Which is not great for a modern, diverse city like Dunedin. You know, there's a little bit of diversity happening, but not heaps. It's mostly just Swedish people. So there's an there's like a response to this website called Non-Scandinavia. I'm sure you guys have probably heard of this already, but this is a great kind of site that has a whole bunch of different ethnicities of people, which is really good. Here we go. And then there's a filtered kind of version like this, which has this kind of effect on it. But I think that you can get the originals as well if you look up. Yeah, up here. You can get the originals as well. But yeah, it's the whole thing about, okay, these are just people that were on the street that you're taking a picture of, so they might not want to be in your rendering. Let's get this guy, save image as. Oh, there's a bunch of different good people. Yeah, great. Yeah, yes. Oh, there we go. That guy will be good for sitting in my little bunker, whatever it is. Let's drag those in. Sweet, he's already coming in black and white. Cool. And then this guy's just chilling. He's going to be chilling up here. Cool. And this is just, I mean, they're not super obviously clearly right there. The people, I mean, they're just within that whole scene. What I'm going to do is just bring that ground, yeah, and that as well. I'm going to bring them above the people, above everything, just so that his foot doesn't overlap it. And I'm going to put him just over there so you can see his silhouette a wee bit clearer. Maybe he's over here. He's just chilling over there. And yeah, I mean the scale's all wrong with the people, but you guys will be able to get that all right. One trick is you can leave a person in SketchUp. You kind of have them there as a reference for scale. I think that this guy should be around that big, maybe. Cool. So I won't go through all the other views that I've got, but that's kind of one way that you can. I mean that's how I kind of construct images with Photoshop. So what we're trying to get at here is you don't have to do everything as a high quality photorealistic render, because that has a certain communication behind it, right? Like maybe you're not talking about that. Maybe you don't want to be talking about luxury or commodity or realism. Maybe you want to be talking about speculation and fiction and you know, playful spaces or more somber spaces like this, for example. Maybe this is more like a reflection place, so it's like a place for mental well-being or something. I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you've been with me this whole time, and hopefully you've learned something. Anyway, good luck, and I'll see you guys later.